So when most of us think about the logistics sector, I mean the real backbone of our economy, we tend to focus on the big stuff, the tech, the scale. We picture all the state-of-the-art automation, those predictable algorithms that are optimizing every single route. We talk about maximizing throughput, minimizing fuel costs, mastering the supply chain. But if you strip all that away, the hardware, the software, the source material we've gathered for this deep dive shows something, well, something really fundamental and frankly a little counterintuitive. The difference between a logistics company that's just surviving and one that's really thriving, it doesn't actually hinge on the latest inventory management system. It hinges on the human element. Today, we are taking a deep dive into employee engagement, but specifically tailored for the unique pressures of logistics. We're trying to figure out how you get people from just simple compliance to genuine, well, emotional commitment, and how that delivers a real strategic advantage. The question is, how do you even quantify the return on empathy in such a tight margin business?
That's a crucial pivot. And you're right, the sources make it so clear that the stakes are incredibly high here. I mean, this is an industry that's just defined by volatility. You're always up against external factors you can't control, like unpredictable fuel prices, infrastructure problems, intense competition, and, of course, the constant pressure of just-in-time delivery. So when the whole external environment is that unstable, where do you find your stability, your edge? The answer that the research points to is, well, it's internal. If your margins are paper thin, your most controllable asset, the thing that can make the biggest impact is the mindset of the person behind the wheel or the person managing that last mile. Operational success, especially when you're under that much pressure, it really does hinge on a workforce that is deeply, deeply invested.
Okay, so that brings us right to the definition then, because we're not talking about, those feel-good HR metrics. We're talking about emotional commitment. But it's so easy for companies to confuse engagement with just simple job satisfaction. How do the sources kind of draw that line, especially for a workforce that's so decentralized?
That's a great challenge to start with, yeah. Job satisfaction,
Right.
it's
Or
transactional.
I get paid well, so I'm satisfied.
Exactly. But emotional commitment is relational. I genuinely care about just their success and the reputation of this company.
Hmm.
For a driver or a warehouse supervisor, that means they don't just, check the boxes on their job description. They actually internalize the company's goals. The sources define this as creating an environment where employees feel a sense of pride, like a sense of ownership. They understand the why. Why are decisions being made? Why does this specific load matter? Why does the company exist beyond just making money? And that ownership, that's what drives discretionary effort, the effort you can't pay for, the effort you can't write into a contract.
Okay, let's ground that idea, because it's a bit abstract. The source material had some fantastic examples of this discretionary effort in action. Can you paint a picture for us? What does that commitment actually look like, on the road or in the distribution center?
Okay, so think about a driver. A compliant driver follows the route, takes their breaks, and delivers the load. Standard stuff. But an engaged driver, they're constantly thinking ahead. So, for example, they might see traffic slowing down 100 miles out from a major city, and they'll proactively call dispatch and suggest a minor detour. It might be a bit of a risk, but it's a risk they take because they genuinely care about hitting the client's super tight receiving window.
That's fascinating. So it's moving beyond just following instructions to proactive problem solving.
Exactly. Or think about the planning team. A satisfied planner just runs the software, prints the manifest, done. But an engaged planner, maybe they're dealing with a critical cold chain shipment. They look at what the algorithm spits out and they say, hang on, that 1 hour layover near the coast, that exposes this specific product to way too much risk.
Hmm.
And they'll manually override the system based on their own intelligence and their commitment to getting that product there safely.
So the key takeaway here isn't just that engagement is, good. In logistics, it's actually a critical operational buffer. It's insurance against volatility. When that driver or that planner makes that proactive call, they're protecting the company.
Precisely. From financial risk, from reputational damage.
Hmm.
And the cost of the opposite is just brutal.
Hmm.
The sources really stress this. When employees feel disconnected, when they're just clocking in and out, small issues escalate instantly. They don't flag a minor vehicle maintenance issue until it becomes a catastrophic failure on the highway.
Right.
They don't proactively manage inventory, which leads to spoilage that was totally avoidable. This disconnection shows up directly as high staff turnover, more safety incidents, and just rising operational costs. It's a
Right.
direct threat to the bottom line.
That ripple effect is huge. And it brings us right to the numbers, which is what the second part of our sources got into. Let's talk about the direct, measurable impact of engagement on core logistics operations. Because there are definitely still skeptics out there, people who would argue that, success is mainly down to better software or bigger trucks. How do we say people are fundamentally more important?
We justify it because technology doesn't manage anomalies. People do. Technology can model a perfect world, sure, but humans have to navigate the real one. The sources highlight 4 specific areas where high engagement translates into hard business advantages.
Okay, let's run through them. The first one seems like the most quantifiable. Operational reliability.
Yes, reliability is everything in logistics. It's the currency you trade in. Engaged employees take real pride in their work, and that translates into an obsession with doing things right the first time. Think about the loading dock. Pride means fewer missed shipments, fewer damage claims, and crucially, less equipment downtime. If a warehouse employee is meticulous with their forklift, that's less unscheduled maintenance, fewer delays. It just makes the whole system more robust.
And that reliability flows right into the second point, customer satisfaction.
It's an immediate consequence. Customers can feel it. They can tell the difference between a team that's just processing a delivery
Oh, absolutely.
and a team that genuinely owns the outcome. Engaged staff offer better proactive communication. They don't wait for the customer to call about a delay.
They call first with the solution.
Exactly. They're already implementing the solution.
Yeah.
And that builds trust, which leads to higher retention, better contracts. That stability is gold.
The third point, safety and compliance. This is where engagement can deliver these massive, but sometimes invisible returns.
Totally. When a team feels respected, they see safety protocols not as some, bureaucratic chore, but as standards that protect them and their colleagues. The safety culture shifts from mandatory to voluntary. And this proactive approach, whether it's hours of service logs or handling hazardous materials, it doesn't just protect people. It protects the company's reputation, lowers insurance costs, and avoids huge regulatory fines.
And the sources mentioned this was especially true in really demanding places like the South African context they looked at.
Exactly. Where the pressures are immense, voluntary safety compliance is like the ultimate marker of high engagement.
And finally, number 4 is about internal stability, retention, and morale. Logistics is famous for its high turnover.
High turnover is the silent killer of profitability. I mean, hiring and training a new commercial driver can cost tens of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
Engaged employees are just more motivated to stay. It reduces that expense dramatically. Plus, a stable, high-performing team boosts morale, and that positive culture starts to attract other great employees. It's a virtuous cycle.
So we've established the why. Engagement isn't some nice to have, it's a strategic necessity. But now we get to the how. This is where the critique always comes in. It sounds great in a seminar, but how do you actually do it? With a huge decentralized workforce that's operating 24/7, you can't just mandate emotional commitment.
And that's the crux of it, really. The sources are very clear that this is uniquely difficult in a sector where so many employees are remote. It requires a real shift in leadership and in culture, not just a new app. They identified 5 essential pillars to focus on, but we have to look at them through that lens of managing a team that's never in the same room.
Let's do it. So, starting with the foundation, pillar 1, communicate openly and consistently.
Right. And communication in logistics can't just be a newsletter. It has to be frequent, it has to be relevant, and it has to be accessible to that long-haul driver who's, hardly ever at the Hearn office. The sources suggest things like short mandatory video updates from leadership, maybe focusing on what they call mission metrics, showing the frontline team exactly how their performance last week directly impacted a major client.
So you're shifting it from just being like a corporate fluff to actual operational intelligence. You're
Yeah.
telling the driver, hey, the 15 minutes you saved on that turnaround Tuesday, that directly helped us renew the Miller account.
Precisely. It connects their effort to the outcome. It builds trust. It shows that decisions aren't just arbitrary.
Okay, moving on to pillar 2. Recognize and appreciate effort. This is another one that's simple to say, but really hard to do when the effort you want to reward is, invisible. Or it's preventative.
Yeah, that's the challenge. How do you recognize the preventative action? How do you spot the dock worker who meticulously strapped a pallet just right and because of that prevented a $5,000 damage claim halfway across the country?
You can't wait for the annual banquet.
No way.
Yeah.
Recognition has to be timely, specific, and visible to everyone. The sources suggest using immediate digital recognition systems, maybe through the same app the drivers are already using, for hitting 0 safety incidents or for high efficiency scores. And crucially, you have to involve peer-to-peer recognition. When a coworker praises another for helping them out, that carries so much weight.
That makes a lot of sense. You're using the tech that's already in their hands. Okay, so pillar 3, provide growth opportunities. For a lot of logistics roles, especially driving, the perception is that the career path is pretty flat. How do you show you're committed to their future?
You have to get creative. It's not just about promotion. If a driver sees their ceiling as just driver, loyalty starts to fade. So you create specialized tracks. Maybe it's a certification for hauling sensitive materials, or an internal mentorship program where your seasoned pros teach the new recruits. Or you can even build structured pathways for experienced drivers to move into dispatch or planning or safety training roles.
So you're not just offering advancement, you're offering a professional development that makes them more valuable to the entire industry, which in turn makes them more loyal to you for providing it.
Exactly. They see you're investing in their long-term potential, not just their immediate usefulness.
Pillar 4, listen and act on feedback. Every company says they have an open door policy, but I imagine the difference is in the acting part.
It is entirely in the action.
Oh,
Frontline staff are the experts on inefficiency. They see the flaws in the routes, the bottlenecks in the yard, way before management does. Asking for feedback and then doing nothing is actually worse than not asking at all. It just breeds cynicism.
Total.
The sources recommend implementing mandatory response loops. If a driver submits an idea, a leader has to follow up within, say, 48 hours. Even if the answer is, great idea, but here's why we can't do it right now. Showing that their input directly led to a change, even a tiny one, is pure engagement gold.
It makes them collaborators, not just employees. Okay, finally we get to pillar 5, build a sense of purpose. How do you elevate moving boxes into a vital mission?
You have to step back and remind them what the supply chain actually means. Logistics, at its core, is about connecting human need with resources. It's delivering critical medical supplies. It's ensuring communities have food. It's keeping manufacturing lines running. When leaders consistently frame the daily grind, the 3 a.m. start, the traffic not as a hassle, but as a critical contribution to how society functions, it totally transforms the job. The source material argues this is especially powerful when things get tough. When those external pressures mount, a deep sense of purpose helps teams weather the storm.
That is a really profound shift in perspective. So when we pull all this together, the central finding of our deep dive is pretty undeniable. Employee engagement is the human advantage in a really demanding industry. It turns a logistics company into a place where people actively want to contribute, not just for a paycheck, but because they're proud of what they're building.
And that's the final message for you, the listener. If you're struggling with high operating costs or trying to increase reliability, or you just need to stand out in a crowded market, the sources suggest that the most powerful lever you can pull isn't buying new equipment, it's looking inward. It's assessing your culture and investing in the emotional commitment of your frontline team.
That really is the strategic shift we need to make. So if all the evidence shows performance improves when employees are highly engaged, consider this for a moment. What is one non-monetary action a leader in your organization could take this week to genuinely show a frontline employee that their consistent daily effort is not only seen, but truly valued in a way that matters in the high-stakes world of logistics? Just think about that one specific action you could implement tomorrow to start building that crucial emotional connection.